Welcome to Implausible Nature, home of competitive Black Templars gameplay. In today's video, we are going to go over the units from the Indomitus box. So first up, we have probably my favorite new unit from this box is the BLADEGUARD veterans. These guys are everything I could have hoped for from a Primaris melee-oriented unit. They just scream Black Templars. They are 5 power. They are 35 points each, so 105 points for the squad, which is pretty cheap considering what they bring to the table. Standard Primaris stat line with one exception. They really, I guess, two exceptions. They have 3 wounds, which they are not in Gravis armor. That's worth noting. They can ride in an impulsor. So that third wound is really huge for them, given that there's only 3 models in there. And being veterans, they do have a third attack, 4 for the sergeant. So that is helpful, again, given their small squad size. And they come with heavy bolt pistols, nothing to write home about there. We mentioned this in the last video. Heavy bolt pistols have been buffed from 12 inches to 18 inches. So that's a nice little change there, only for the units in the Indominus box. Sorry, Reavers, you still have 12-inch bolt pistols. They also have the Mastercrafted Power Sword, the same one that the captain and the lieutenant have, +1 strength, 2 damage, AP -3. They do have Storm Shields, again, the same Storm Shield the lieutenant has, gives you a 4+ invulnerable save, improves the bearer saving throw by 1. So these guys are a perfect unit to stick in an impulsor, drive up the field, jump out, move 6 inches, advance, and devout push into combat with a captain and a judiciar and really ruin someone's day. I think that is going to be an excellent tactic for us to use them for, and they may even we may even be able to use them walking up the board in maybe like some kind of a horde style list. We'll kind of explore that option maybe in a future video when we start talking about lists.
Yep, absolutely. These guys are just fantastic. As Alex mentioned, they just scream Black Templar. The models themselves are excellent. We haven't had this gothic feel for our armies or units in quite a long time. You know, our poor fourth edition upgrade box is definitely showing its age, but these guys are everything that we wanted for them. Now, I do have to clarify a little bit on something that Alex mentioned for a devout push. Thing to note with these guys, some math for you. Just note when you're doing your devout push, it does not count as a charge, so you do not activate Angels of Death. So you do not get that additional attack for charging. So that means when you're making that devout push, you are rocking in with 10 attacks. So assuming they are by themselves, which you should not be, but I'll get into that in just a moment, you're going to be doing 3.7 unsaved wounds to Primaris unit for a total of 7.4 damage. So you're going to kill over over 3 models, so approximately 4 models. However, you're also going to have most likely a captain with them. So if you do that, you're going to have some additional efficiency with that unit, which is going to be key for a devout push combo. So if you do have that, you're going to be doing 4.3 unsaved wounds and 8.64 damage. So almost a total of a little over 4 models that are going to be dead from this. So that's nothing to sniff at, because then you also have to account for any potential shots from your heavy bolt pistol that you did prior to charging in as well. And that's going to count for a little less than a wound. So it looks like with that charge, you're going to be knocking out 1 Primaris unit in a non-charge situation, which is pretty big. So it's a great thing to have, but just make sure that you're being aware of that you're not going to get that full suite of attacks that you're going to have available. So it's going to be 10, but they're still good and very durable. So they can take out that 1 unit.
One way to kind of circumvent that a little bit, this may be one of the only places where the relic from the Codex, the Honor Vehement, is actually worth it, because then they just get that +1 attack. So that may actually be a worthwhile relic to put on that captain, or maybe even the Judiciar that rides with them, to give them that +1 attack boosting them up to 13 attacks for even more damage output.
Yep, absolutely. This is one of those units that has so many intricate combos that work well with it that just makes it great. An additional thing that you, in addition to that captain, as we mentioned in the previous video, is you're going to want to have the Judicar with it. So you can guarantee that you are going to force your opponent to strike last when getting that devout push in, or force them to spend an ungodly amount of CP to interrupt. So either one is a negative for your opponent. Either they're spending that precious CP for that opponent, or they're striking last and losing a unit. It's a great all-around combo for us. And they look like Black Templar, so that's even better. So our next unit is going to be the Assault Intercessor Squad. With these guys, they're going to have the same exact stat line as our regular Intercessors, but it should be noted that they are not classified as intercessors. They are keyword assault intercessors, so they do not gain the benefit of the veteran intercessor stratagem, which is unfortunate because then these guys would be way broken. And I'm just crossing my fingers that the new codex changes that. But with these guys, instead of having your three choices of ranged weapons, you have our heavy bolt pistol. Our sergeant has the option for the plasma pistol. And then we have the new Astartes chainsword, which is an upgrade, and presumably the possibility of this being upgraded on all of our new units going forward in the new codex. Not for sure, but there's some rumors out there that that might, at least for Primaris units, be applicable. And that unit gives us a -1 AP in addition to the additional attack. So that additional AP is going to be huge and allow us to take down some mech where our standard chainswords were just average. Now, this unit can be taken in units of 5 to 10, and if you're going to slog them, I would highly recommend using them at a level of 10 and bringing a chaplain along for the ride. Chaplain Grimaldus is a great HQ to tag along with them as a master of sanctity and using a multitude of different litanies to protect them, whether it be litany of devout protection to give them those feel no pain or giving the additional attack litany. There's going to be some huge opportunities. You can also combo them in an impulsor at the 5 strength level and pair them with an HQ to give them some additional attack power. But these guys, I think, are going to be best used on the tabletop, unless you're taking a multitude of impulsors to make those worthwhile.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think I was a little lukewarm on these guys at first, but the more I have thought about them, the more I like them. I think they are going to be, especially when you pair them with a chaplain to maybe give them divine protection, the new terrain rules. Foot slogging up the field with a large squad of melee guys is not something that is guaranteed to lose anymore. I think it can definitely be something they can go into the midfield and take an objective, and good luck trying to get it away from them, especially with some of the defensive buffs that we have. Alternatively, you can slingshot them up the board using our various movement tricks, which will help you get them where they need to be. I think we could potentially even see something like a return of Black Tide almost using these guys. I have a list in mind, a little teaser. I have a list in mind that I'm thinking of with 30 assault intercessors. So let that settle in there for a minute. So we'll get into that when we start talking about lists later on. But I like this unit a lot. That definitely have great potential. So
One thing I do want to add with these guys is weight of attacks is something that plays into our super doctrine very well.
yes, especially with strength 4 attacks.
Yeah, exactly. Never before have we had the weight of attacks other than on a Crusader squad in a small, compact, and relatively cheap points-wise unit. If you're using even 110 squad and you're going to be activating quite a few different times on our Super Doctrine, you have a foot slogging list like Alex is teasing about, that's even more. So, we want to have as many attacks as we can on the board to be able to activate that unmodified 6 roll to get that auto wound, and that's going to be great going forward. And we haven't really touched on how the Indomitus box really hits on that, because there was AP on most of those weapons. While we will have the -1 base for the Astartes Chainsword, once we get into our Assault Doctrine, that's -2 plus the unmodified 6 does an automatic wound. That's going to be huge. These guys are going to be huge damage dealers if you take enough of them.
Yeah, and they're a good candidate to run a HQ with the Crusader Helm with them. They probably won't be attacking anything first turn unless your opponent is also playing a melee-centric army and they move towards you. But a turn 2 charge is definitely possible, and having these guys in Assault Doctrine on turn 2 could be brutal, especially running them with Grimaldus with his extra attacks. There's a litany, standard litany you could run out of the Codex, the one that gives the same thing as Grimaldus's Unmatched Zeal for double exploding 6s and Canticles of Hate to get them in closer. So these guys are going to be really versatile. They're cheaper than an Intercessors. That's something else that we should mention. They're 19 points versus 20. They are the cheapest Primaris troop choice, and I think they're going to be a great mainstay for Black Templars going forward. So that brings us to Outrider Squad. This is probably my second favorite unit from this box set. These guys are so cool. Bikes, the bikes look just so great. I've always liked bikes, even though Black Templars aren't necessarily a bike-centric chapter. Having melee bikes is something that's really cool. I know several of us on Bolter and Chainsword, myself, Firepower, a few others, have made bikes that have lances because it's just such a knightly thing to do. So having bikes that are actually really good in close combat is amazing. So these guys are 6 power. They are 45 points apiece. So you're looking at 135 points for the squad. They have pretty standard bike stat line. They move 14 inches. They are tough 5. Unlike standard bikes, which add +1 wound, these guys are 4 wounds. So they are adding 2 extra wounds over your standard Primaris stat line, which is huge. That is a huge change, and we were not expecting that. I was very pleased to see how durable these guys are going to be. They also come with heavy bolt pistols. Their bike guns are bolt rifles, which is excellent. Get that extra AP, extra range in there. Since they are bikes, they will always rapid fire at full 30 inches. So you're looking at rapid fire 2. That's going to be 4 shots per bike all the time, which is awesome. And they have Astartes Chainswords as well. So probably their biggest rule that no one was expecting is they have devastating charge. If this unit makes a charge move, add 2 to the attack's characteristics of models in this unit until the end of the turn. So they have 2 attacks base. They get 1 for shock assault. They get 2 for devastating charge. So you are going to be looking at, and then they get 1 for a chainsword. So they have 6 attacks each, and the sergeant has an extra 1 for being a sergeant. So a single unit of 3 of these guys is going to have 19 attacks on the charge. That's insane. Really, really good damage output for these guys. This is another great unit candidate for having an HQ with a Crusader helm nearby. These guys can potentially make a first turn charge. Something they GW teased us with, is a Primaris biker chaplain that's coming. He will be a great candidate to run with 1 or more Outrider squads as they full throttle up the field to take objectives and mow down enemy infantry. So yeah, I'm really excited about this unit.
Yeah, they're very, very competitive unit right here. So these ones are going to be able to do a whole lot of different things on your board, whether you need to claim quarters or get those objectives outside on the edges of the board, or maybe you just need a quick counter charge unit. Even if they are not accompanied by an HQ, they're going to be huge. So these guys will do on the charge 5.67 damage to any unit they attack. So Primaris, you're going to kill almost 3 or an entire unit of a 5-man squad for normal mech on that. One thing I kind of want to tease on with what Alex is saying is we can make the inference based on the Outriders, so that the potential for that Primaris Chaplain on bike is also going to have that devastating charge if they follow the trend here. So that'll be even better with that Chaplain. Now, obviously, that's kind of guessing there.
And 2 extra wounds potentially.
Yep, 2 extra wounds with that. So if you get a Primaris Chaplain going with them, you can have a combat monster following these bikes around. So that's going to be very juicy going forward. So, yeah, the Outriders are going to be a really good unit to be able to be a Swiss Army knife for you going forward. So that brings us to our last unit in Indomitus, the Eradicator Squad. I kind of have a love-hate with this unit. So, on paper, this unit is fantastic. So you get 3 units, standard Primaris Stallion, except he does get an additional toughness and wound. One thing with this unit is they get a new weapon. It's called the Melta Rifle with a 24-inch Assault 1 Melta. So that's Strength 8, -4 AP, D6 damage. And when you're resolving attack against a unit within half range, you roll 2d6 to determine the damage. But the key with this is the special rule called Total Obliteration, in which that states in your shooting phase you can declare this unit will only shoot at a single target. If you do, select one target unit for this unit. Models in this unit can shoot twice this phase, but they only may target that selected enemy unit. So basically you can shoot twice at the same unit if you so choose. So that doubles the efficiency of your unit. For 120 points, on paper, these guys are going to do a ton of damage to whatever they shoot at. So they're going to kill vehicles. They're going to kill elite enemy units. My problem is, and this is my personal, is they got to walk. That makes them slow. And with a 5-inch movement range for a Gravis unit, we may not be able to get them quickly across the board to where those dangerous units are. Sure, we do have a 24-inch range on those Melta rifles, but your opponent can outrange them, and that's something that is of concern for me. With that being said, you can use some CP to use the strategic reserves to get those onto your outflanks on your opponent's side, but again, you're essentially losing a couple of turns to be able to use these guys. So I have a love-hate on them. They're good to hold the midfield, but a strategic competitive opponent will likely mitigate that using line-of-sight blocking terrain, and they're not really going to put themselves in a situation where they're going to be in range of those weapons. But they are pretty fantastic if they do.
Yeah, these guys, I'm kind of the same way. I have anyone who's talked to me knows my feelings on Melta. Melta has a lot of issues right now in the game. Low volume of shots, short range, swingy damage. All of those add up to it's generally not worth the points. What saves these guys is total obliteration. You want to use that rule every single time. Every time. It is what makes them a cut above every other melta gun in the game. So being able to shoot 6 shots with essentially a 29-inch threat range, I would not count on these guys ever being inside 12 inches because they are slow, as Bob pointed out, and your opponent is going to target them. So don't ever count them on being inside half range. Instead, look at your numbers based on what am I doing with just that D6? And it's actually pretty good. 6 shots, shooting a tough 7, 3+ save thing, vehicle, monster, whatever. You're going to do 9.33 wounds per turn if you use total obliteration with no buffs. Now, if you add in like a captain or a lieutenant or some other sort of buff to ballistic skill or wounding, those numbers jump up to, I think, about 12 wounds. So they can certainly put the hurt out. The problem is, like Bob said, getting outranged because they are a slower unit, having stuff hiding behind terrain, and them getting shot. That being said, though, I think they're cheap enough that at 120 points, you can definitely throw a squad, maybe 2, into a list and make your opponent think about them instead of, or combine them with bikes. Now you got to choose. You have Outriders bearing down on you with 19 attacks, or you have these guys shooting you from 24 inches out. We'll have to see how they play out. Obviously, ninth is still very young yet. We don't have a lot of data on how they've been utilized, but I have talked to who said that they've done very well for them, so that's good news. So we'll have to see. I like this unit overall, but just keep those weaknesses in mind if you decide to field them.
Yep. As Alex said, we'll have to see how it plays out.
I think strategic reserving them is something that you'll want to consider every game, depending on your opponent and the board and the other various factors that go along with it. Losing a turn of shooting to potentially come on and be able to be in that 12-inch range could be game changing. So just keep that in mind when you field these units. And yeah, I think that about wraps it up for this video. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you can get notified on all the latest updates from our channel. And we'll see you guys next time.